Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Tales from the Darkness. I'd like to first apologize for my voice. I'm still getting over whatever contagion I fell prey to at my day job. Stop Screaming from R.L. Starr. I've always had an extremely vivid imagination. And a handful of times each year, when I get really stressed, I have the most vivid hallucinations. Sometimes it's as small as seeing people in my peripheral vision, but sometimes, in very rare cases, something like this happens. A few months ago, around Christmas, I was under a great deal of financial burden, and along with issues at my job, it caused a great deal of stress in my life. So, one night, about 2 hours after my girlfriend and I went to bed, and she had dozed off, I began to get the usual, someone talking to me hallucination. This is almost always strictly just noise in my head, and once in a while, I'd talk to it just to entertain myself. This specific night, the voice was louder and more violent than the usual voices I heard. I did not tell my girlfriend this, but it would ask me to hurt her while she slept. It ordered me to suffocate her. I spoke back. I told it I would not hurt her. I told it to stop. The voice became more distant shortly after, but after a while, I noticed I was unable to move my body or look around. I tried very hard to move, and after a few deep breaths, I was able to slightly move, but I felt like someone was staring at me. I just felt that cold, hateful glare shooting at me. So I turned my head, and it was the worst mistake I had ever made. I'm not sure at this point if I was asleep or awake anymore. All I know is, what I saw that night was the scariest thing I had ever seen in my life. There, in the corner of the room, stood a dark figure that stared at me. I really tried to remain calm as I mustered up the strength to speak, and all that came out was, "Get out." In that single moment, that was all I could say. Get out. It was repeated, going from a mutter to a loud, ear-shattering scream, over and over again. My girlfriend awoke to me screaming, and held me down on the bed and covered my eyes as she watched me scream at the corner of the room. I wouldn't or couldn't calm down for a while. I continued to scream until I completely lost my voice. I didn't see it the next night, or any night after, but for many days, I refused to sleep in the same room with my girlfriend. She was scared of sleeping in the dark, and afraid of sleeping with me for a few weeks. I just hope that none of my schizophrenic outbursts are ever that bad again, because that was the scariest night of my life. The Man in My Walls, from Yesher Besher. At the time of this story, I was 16 years old and just starting 10th grade. I'm now 19 and in college. I lived with my mom and dad. I wish I could say this is fake, but sadly it's all true. Writing about this digs up the terrible feelings that came as a result of the events that transpired during the month of November 2015. Some events have been left out because either they have personal details, I don't remember them, or I don't want to talk about it because of the emotional trauma this caused. My family and I moved from South Texas to southern Arizona in 2015. We moved into an old house that we were renting from my aunt. She said the house had been sitting there for a little more than a year, and she just wanted to put it to use. When we moved in, the place was surprisingly clean. Not much dust or dirt anywhere. The only weird thing was, there was a locked door leading into one of the bedrooms. We called my aunt and asked for the key to the door because our keys didn't work for it. After about an hour of cleaning, my aunt dropped off the key and looked through the house quickly and left. My little brother had already made friends with the boys around the neighborhood. I've always had problems making friends, and back in Texas, I only really had two good friends. So starting in a completely new place, I envied my brother for being able to make friends. I was diagnosed with insomnia at the age of 10, so I've had trouble falling asleep since then. It generally takes me around an hour to fall asleep. We tried so many different medications, like melatonin, Ambien, and Restoril, and none of them seemed to work. About a week into living in the new house, I was laying in the bed when I heard a sound from the walls. I'm a paranoid person, so I immediately shot up and listened some more. It was like a sound of something brushing up against the wall. I got up out of bed and walked over to where I thought it was coming from, but once I got over to that part of the room, it seemed to be coming from a different part of the room. I wasn't scared, but more confused than anything else. I decided to sleep on the couch, because it didn't seem to stop. But when I grabbed the door handle and started to open the door, suddenly there was a slight knock on the wall next to me. I stopped in my tracks and put my ear up to the wall, and another knock, louder than the one before, sent me sprinting to my parents' room. I woke them up, but the excuse they gave me was the old air conditioning. I slept on the couch that night because there was no way I was sleeping in my room. The next morning, I investigated my room and the walls of my room to no avail. I thought about it all day, and eventually I gave up because it just didn't make any sense. The only room next to mine was the guest bedroom, but there was about 6 feet of space between the rooms, so it couldn't have come from that room. The sound was back that night, but I just decided to believe my mom and tried to sleep through the noise. 45 minutes later, I heard a creaking sound from the hallway, but it was muffled. I was never really a kid that got scared easily, so this didn't bother me. I got out of bed and opened the door, half expecting to hear another knock. I walked out into the hallway in complete darkness. I still wasn't familiar with the house, so finding the light switch was a challenge. I moved down the hallway and got to the stairs and found one of the light switches. I flipped the switch on, and the sound of a door slamming made me scream and sent me sprinting to my parents' room again, bumping into my dad on the way in. We both went into the guest bedroom and searched around for a bit. There wasn't much furniture in there, so the only places we had to check was under the bed and in the closet. We looked under the bed, only to find nothing, but in the closet, we found a small door. My dad opened the door, shined a flashlight in there, and jumped back. He scrambled back up against the bed and told me to call the police. I ran to the phone and dialed 911, and they said the police would be there soon. I ran back into the room, but I heard my mom scream as a man runs down the hall and down the stairs. My dad and I chased him, but he was already out of the house by the time we got down the stairs. When the police got there, they checked the room, and it was a maintenance room that had an old water heater. But what else they found made me collapse on the floor in tears. There were pictures of me, all over the walls, with different articles of clothing that had gone missing. He had been sleeping in the guest bedroom until we moved in, and then slept inside the maintenance room. There was a hole in the wall looking into my room, with a camera looking through it. I was put into counseling, which helped a little bit, but not much, because knowing someone watched or even maybe touched you while you sleep scars you for life, and nothing can fix that. My parents never told me what was found on the camera, and deep down, I didn't want to know either. First sleepover with an uninvited guest. From Anonymous. I was 13 when this happened. I was going over to my friend Mia's house for my first sleepover. Mia lived on a huge estate. Her house was basically a mansion. My mom pulled into the driveway, and I noticed that it wasn't gated off like any other rich estate would be. It was about to be dinner time, and Mia was already outside waiting for me. Getting out of the car, I scanned her huge yard, taking note of the multiple buildings that were there. Mia led me inside, and I said hello to her mom and dad. Her mom and dad thought it would be fun if they let us have the house to ourselves. They trusted Mia enough to handle the house for one night. They would stay at a local spa hotel that was down the road, so if anything went wrong, they wouldn't be too far away. Her parents were hardcore Italians, so of course her mom laid out ingredients to make a homemade pizza. After they were gone, Mia and I started making our own pizza for dinner. We put it on one of those wooden paddles and brought it outside to their pizza oven. It was dark now, and only the pizza oven gave off a dim light. We sat on her deck that overlooked the ocean and the other buildings of her estate. It was a quiet night. That is, until we heard a loud crash come from the barn. It sounded like wood planks falling to the ground with force. It echoed off the walls of that area for a few seconds, then it was quiet again. Mia looked at me and rolled her eyes. Damn raccoons, they always get in the barn. "You sure raccoons can knock over wooden planks?" I questioned. "They always make a mess, just ignore it," she said. So that's what I did. I ignored that almost deliberate sound. After a while, we had our dinner, and we got changed into our pajamas and headed upstairs. I want to make note here how Mia's mansion is set up. Part of the upstairs is renovated and modern, but there are 2 rooms on the east wing that are old, and one room, that was her nursery, has a hole in the floor where you can look down into the living room below. They were also renovating the entire downstairs of the east wing, so it was all plastic curtain and wooden beams. It was 1 a.m. now, and we decided we wanted to pull an all-nighter. So upstairs, we bundled up on the couch to eat a ton of candy and watch a movie. The house was silent besides the movie playing. At around 2 a.m., I heard a noise coming from downstairs. It was almost like the sound of weight transferring from one surface to another. It's hard to describe, but I think you know what I mean. I nudged Mia, who was half asleep. She woke up angry, but I put a finger to my lips before she could yell at me. "I think I heard something downstairs." Mia rolled her eyes and dramatically got up and walked towards the old nursery where the hole in the floor was. She got on all fours and looked with her left eye down into the hole. At first, she showed no reaction, but a few seconds later, her shoulders stiffened and her hands formed fists. She leaned up, and she had a look of fear in her eyes. "I don't know who it is, but I saw someone's back. I'm pretty sure that's what I saw." My instincts kicked in, and I walked quickly to the door to lock it. From the living room, there's a stairway that gives you access to the entire upstairs. Locking this door should keep us safe. I got down on my knees and told her I wanted to look. I looked down the hole and saw nothing at first, but after 10 seconds or so, I saw a skinny man wander by. He was wearing black, and he looked to be Hispanic. I got back up and whispered to Mia, "Call your parents. I think this guy's a robber." Mia said her phone was back by the TV. I told her I'd be a lookout while she got it. She swiftly opened the door while I kept looking down into the hole looking for the man. Mia soon returned and was already on the phone with her parents. She now had tears in her eyes. I guess she was feeling a lot of fear. I was scared too, but I knew this guy so far was oblivious that there were 2 tween girls looking down at him. Mia said that her parents called the police and that they will have to wait in the driveway while they clear the house. 5 minutes later, I heard the police announce themselves, and we both tried to look into the hole to see what's happening. I could kind of see the police move past my vision, looking for the man, but soon I heard one say that they got him, so we took that as our cue to go back downstairs. We went outside to see a few police officers with the skinny guy. They quickly put him into the car, and one came back over to question us. We told him what we knew, and after that, they were gone. Mia's parents also called mine, so I had to go home that night, which I was okay with. We learned that it was all our fault, because we didn't lock the kitchen door after we were outside with the pizza oven. The guy was in the barn earlier, and he was just waiting to see if he could get inside. Unfortunately, we didn't pay attention to the locks. I'm just glad that nothing bad happened to us. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, despite the illness that plagues me. Don't forget to hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to hear more creepy tales. If you want to hear your story narrated, feel free to send it to storiesofdarkness55@gmail.com. Pleasant dreams.